UFC is back in the Mile High City, first time in 6 years. Not the best card on paper, and the elevation might make it even worse. But let's get into it. First fight of the night, we got Abdul Razak Alhassan taking on Cody Brundage. So Alhassan, he's 12-6. That's 6-6 in the UFC. Brundage, he's 10-6. That's 4-5 in the UFC. Alhassan has lost 3 of his last 5, and he's lost 5 of his last 7. Brundage, though, also lost 3 of his last 5 and has lost 4 of his last 6. Alhassan is 38, but he's going to be 39 next month, and Brundage still only 30. Both of these guys do train in Colorado, so the elevation shouldn't really be a factor, but both are finishers. I'm going to take the over half a round. It's minus 200. Alhassan's hit it in 8 of his 12 UFC fights. And despite 5 of Brundage's 9 UFC fights ending in the first round, he still hit the over half a round in 8 of those 9. So I'm pretty confident in that. We're going to parlay it with something later. I'll get to it. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, the over 1.5 rounds is a plus money single, plus 130. Alhassan's only hit it twice in his last 5 fights, but 4 of his last 5 have at least made it to round 2, so he's getting close. Brundage also only hit it twice in his last 5 fights, but 3 of his last 5 made it to round 2. Some other singles to take. These are minus money, so parlay them with something, but Alhassan by KO, it's minus 115. All 12 of his wins have come by KO, and Brundage has been knocked out twice. Seems like a no-brainer there. Also, the under 2.5, if you think either guy can get it done, it's minus 275. Alhassan's hit the under 2.5 in 14 of his 18 career fights, and Brundage has hit it in 13 of his 16 career fights. That's good enough for 79% of their combined pro fights have hit the under 2.5. Next fight of the night, we got Juicy J, Julian Erosa taking on Christian Rodriguez. So Erosa, he's 29-11, but he's had the rare 3 stints in the UFC. He went 1-1 in 2015-16 after being on Ultimate Fighter, got cut, won a contract on Contender Series, went 0-3. This is in 2018. Got cut again, then got signed again in 2020, and since then has gone 6-3. So overall, he's 7-7 in the UFC, but as I mentioned, 6-3 on this most recent stint. Rodriguez, he's 11-1. That's good enough for 4-1 in the UFC. And dude, he's cashed as a dog in his last 3 fights, like a fat dog too. But he's a decent favorite in this one, so it'll be a little different betting wise. Erosa, he has won 3 of his last 5, but he was knocked out in both of those losses. Rodriguez has won 4 in a row, and 3 of those 4 went the distance. Erosa is going to be 35 at the end of the month, and Rodriguez still only 26. Erosa does train at Extreme Couture, and Rodriguez trains at Rufus Sports, so neither train at elevation. But Erosa does have those mountains nearby in Vegas, so like maybe he was doing some work up there, getting his elevation right. I don't know, man. I'm going to take the over 2.5. It's minus 155. I'm parlaying it with the over half a round in Alhassan Brundage. That's good enough for plus 147. Since this stint in the UFC, Erosa's hit the over 2.5 in 4 of his 9 fights, and 6 of his total 14 UFC fights have hit it. Rodriguez has hit it in 4 of his 5 UFC fights, and he's never been finished. So I like that a lot. If you're looking for anything else to take, Rodriguez by KO, this is a long shot, man. It's plus 300. Only 3 of his wins are by KO, but Erosa's chinny as fuck. He's been knocked out 7 times, including 2 of his last 3. So it could totally happen. Erosa is a dog I kind of like too. He's got like 3 times the experience of Rodriguez. He's got a weird, unique style. 24 of his 29 wins by finish. And this is at elevation, which, as I mentioned, if he's been training in the mountains and shit, this could help him out here. That's plus 170, by the way. Next fight of the night, we got Drew Dober taking on John Silva. So Dober's 27-13 with 1 no contest. That is 13-9, 1 no contest in the UFC. Silva's 13-2. That is 2-0 in the UFC with 2 knockouts, including one like 10 days ago against Charles Jourdain. Dober has won 3 of his last 5. 4 of his last 5 have ended by knockout. Silva's on a 10-fight win streak, and 9 of those 10 are by finish, 7 knockouts, 2 subs. Dober's 35. Silva's still only 27. Dober does train at Elevation Fight Team, in fact, in Colorado. Silva, on the other hand, trains in Brazil, so Dober could actually have the edge here elevation-wise. I'm going to take the over half a round. It's minus 250. Dober, 17 of his 23 UFC fights have hit the over half a round. Silva, 12 of his 15 career fights have hit it. Despite having 9 first-round finishes, still 12 of 15. If you're looking for anything else to take, I think Silva by KO plus 175. 10 of his 13 wins are by KO, including both of his UFC wins. And Dober's been knocked out twice as recently as last year. Flip side, you want to take Dober by KO. That's plus 230. 14 of his 27 wins are by knockout, and his last 7 wins have come by knockout. Silva's never been knocked out, though, so I don't love that one. Over 1.5 is pretty much a pick 'em. It's minus 105 right now. Dober, 3 of his last 5 have hit the over 1.5, and 14 of his 23 UFC fights have hit it. It's good enough for 61%. Silva only hit it once in his last 5, but as I mentioned, this fight is at elevation, and Dober trains there, so it could help him out. Next fight of the night, we got Gabriel Bonfim taking on Ange Loosa. So Bonfim, he's 15-1, 2-1 in the UFC. Loosa is 10-3 with 1 no contest. That's 2-1, 1 no contest in the UFC. Bonfim is coming off his first career loss, that upset to Nicholas Dalby. He was on a 15-fight win streak before that. Loosa unbeaten in 4 of his last 5. Besides the eye poke no contest, all of his Zuffa fights, meaning UFC and Dana White's Contender Series, went the distance. Bonfim, he's 26, Losa's 31. Neither of them train at elevation, so they both could gas quick or it could just be a non-factor. It's an interesting matchup. Bonfim has only ever won by finish, and Losa's never been finished. I'm going to take the over 1.5. It's minus 140. Going to parlay it with the Dober Silva over half a round. That gets us plus 140. Bonfim has hit the over 1.5 in half of his career fights, 16 fights. He's hit it 8 times. Loosa, as I mentioned, has gone the distance in 7 of his last 8. If you're looking for anything else to take, the over 2.5. It's a fat single, plus 135. Bonfim fights don't usually go long, but I just mentioned Losa's never been finished, and 7 of his 8 have gone the distance. So I like that one a lot. Another single, if you just think Bonfim's going to run right through him, Bonfim by finish, minus 200. Got to parlay it with something, but all 15 of his wins have come by finish, and Loosa has never been finished, as I mentioned, but this fight is at elevation, so maybe he gasses and Bonfim gets him out of there. I don't know. Next fight of the night, co-main, actually, we got Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Muslim Salikhov. So Ponzinibbio is 29-7. That's 11-6 in the UFC. Salikhov is 19-5, 6-4 in the UFC. Ponzinibbio has lost 3 of his last 5, but all 3 were top 15 guys. Salikhov also lost last 3 of his 5, including 2 in a row. Ponzinibbio is up there. He's 37, but Muslim's 40. Neither train at elevation. So, I mean, dude, this one might be sloppy and bad, but I'm going to take the over 1.5. It's minus 220. Going to parlay it with something later. Ponzinibbio's hit it in all of his last 5 fights. 12 of his 17 UFC fights have hit the over 1.5 as well. Salikhov has hit it in 4 of his last 5, and 8 of his 10 UFC fights have hit it. Looking for anything else to take? Ponzi by KO. 16 of his 29 wins have come by knockout. That's 55%. And Salikhov's been knocked out twice, including in his last fight in February. If you think it's going to go the other way, though, Muslim by KO is plus 300. And yeah, 13 of his 19 wins have come by KO, and Ponzinibbio's been knocked out 4 times himself, including his last fight. But Muslim's already a fat dog at plus 170, so I would just take that if you think he's going to win. It could go long. It's at elevation. 3 of Muslim's last 4 have gone to a decision, and 2 of Ponzi's last 3 losses have gone to a decision. Main event, we got Rose Namajunas taking on Tracy Cortez. Rose is 12-6, 10-5 in the UFC. Cortez 11-1, 5-0 in the UFC. Namajunas has won 3 of her last 5. She's coming off that unanimous decision win over Amanda Hebas back in March. Tracy did lose her pro debut, but since then has been on an 11-fight win streak. Namajunas 32, Cortez 30. Big factor here. Rose does train at elevation up in Colorado. Cortez does not down in Arizona. So I think that's actually going to be huge here. And I like this fight to go long, but especially because it's at elevation and Rose has the edge. Speaking of Rose having the edge, I'm taking Rose Namajunas money line minus 210. I'm parlaying it with the over 1.5 in the co-main event. Gets us plus 115. So we got 3 parlays on the night, all plus money. For the last 7 years, Rose has really only fought the top girls in the division, strawweight and flyweight, but still Cortez 5-0 in the UFC, but only has 1 win over a top 15 girl, that being Jasmine Jasdavicius, and she's number 15. So never really beaten anyone in the top 10. Don't love her odds here. This fight is at elevation, as I mentioned, and 5 rounds could also be a huge role. Cortez never gone past 3 rounds. If you're looking for anything else to take, Rose by decision. Just mentioned 4 of her last 5 wins by decision. It's at elevation. Cortez has gone the distance in every UFC fight. Seems like a no-brainer. And also the over 4.5 rounds as a parlay piece, minus 280.
I'm worth 100,000 like Woodrow. When a ball call me Wilson, going overboard at the Hilton.